I'll introduce our panelists first. Salima Hashmi is a visual artist and a speaker, received her BFA from NCA Lahore and MFA from Kyoto University of Fine Arts and Music in Japan. She has also been an artist in residence at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. She's a recipient of many awards: the Japan Foundation Fellowship in 1996, National Excellence Award, 7th National Exhibition of Visual Arts, and the Kyoto Museum Musraski Award. Am I saying it right? Sabah. Okay. And she's an author of many publications. We'll talk about them going forward. Our second distinguished speaker who's come all the way to Pakistan is Marcella Khairandi. From States, yeah. From Kansas, and Marcella Khairandi. She first came to Pakistan in 1972 when she was introduced to the works of Abdur Rahman Chughtai, and then that became the topic of her doctoral thesis after she went back to the US. And then a few years later, she came back to Pakistan as a Fulbright scholar to write her book, Contemporary Painting in Pakistan. And she's published a dozen books and catalogs on South Asian art since then. And her most recent book, The Origin and Evolution of Contemporary Miniature Paintings in Pakistan, features Ustad Bashir Ahmed and his students. She's honored to be part of the Think Fest. Thank you, Marcella. Thank you, Sabah. So the format of our panel is going to be a little different than what you have been seeing at the Think Fest. Sabah and Marcella will be in a conversation. They have many, many slides. They'll talk about a few themes from Pakistan's rich art history and the repertoire that they'll present. And I'll, of course, do an occasional interjection. But over to you, Sabah and Marcella.
If you will forgive me, I would like to refer to my notes because we have so many different artists. It's a little bit different, a little bit difficult to remember everything about every artist, or even 16 of them that we have chosen, because there's so many really talented artists in Pakistan. There was no way we could talk about even half of them, so we chose some. As I would like with, who are instrumental in introducing new media, new themes, contributing as teachers to the country, and establishing galleries, which would promote art, of course, curating exhibitions, promoting artists, and even as examples in their own life and their own lifestyles. So we want to begin with, in fact, this particular artist, Amrita Sher-Gil, which those of you who have studied art or have had art courses or know anything about art are familiar with Amrita because she is well, unfortunately for us, called a national artist of India, although we claim her in Pakistan as well. Yes, well, she was part of the subcontinent because Amrita was a pre-partition artist. So we're trying to do kind of a chronological examination of these 16 artists that we have chosen, loosely chronological. So we start with Amrita. She was famous not only as a painter, whose hybrid style melded East and West, but as a dynamic, outspoken woman who stood as a model for many after her. With her Hungarian mother and Punjabi Sikh father, she moved to Hungary in 1921, and she studied art at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. She painted portraits. I think we need to go to the next slide. Should we be giving a word, like, oh, okay. Such as these. In fact, these are both self-portraits of Amrita. Her style, of course, was influenced by European modernism. And for her particularly, she was interested in Cézanne, Matisse, and especially Gauguin. Having returned to India in 1935, I skipped a sentence here, that she moved to Hungary with her family in 1921. And then she returned to India in 1935. Her paintings evolved dramatically, with influence from Pahari miniatures, particularly the Basholi themes. She favored, when she got back to India, village people and genre scenes. Next one. Such as these. In fact, I think you can see particularly the one on the left is very much Basholi influenced, and the right one as well. So she loved camels too, and did a lot of camel paintings. Her work was unlike anything that was being done at that time. And its impact is immense throughout all of South Asia, as well as Pakistan, India as well. Unfortunately, she died very young at the age of 29 in 1941 in Lahore. Sub has some comments about Amrita too.
Amrita is one of those very dynamic personalities who single-handedly changed the art scene in the subcontinent. I remember speaking to M.F. Hussain about her, and he said, and M.F. Hussain is part of the progressive artist movement in India with Raza and a number of other artists. And he said, we were always in awe of her personality and her work. So her work has I think, influenced, she brought in modernism in the subcontinent. And the next person that we have after her is the pioneer of modern art in Pakistan, which is Zubaida Agha.
Like
Sorry.
Amrita Sher-Gil, Zubaida had an art education. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. Had an art education in Europe at St. Martin's School of Art. And also she attended the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris as well. Back in Pakistan, she studied with Babesh Sanyal, who a lot of you may be aware of or may know the name, in Lahore. In Karachi, she painted cultural themes and is described as a consummate colorist. Let's look at her next ones.
Sorry.
Okay. So you can see how strong she was with color and themes that surrounded her in Karachi. And this, of course, is a self-portrait in the European modernist style. In 1961, Zubaida opened one of the first galleries in all of Pakistan in Islamabad, where she could promote other Pakistani artists as well. Zubaida, as Saba has said, is called the pioneer of modern art in Pakistan. I think we have one more.
Yeah.
Images. I think you can see she's the abstract artist who introduced abstraction into Pakistan.
And I think with a lot of women who were in the arts, their influence was not just because they were painting and doing their individual work, but they were also, she ran a gallery for many years, almost 10 years, I think.
1977.
Yeah, and then there were people who were teaching. So the impact was immense because they were not only just about their own individual work, but they were working in the community as teachers, as working in sort of different fields. And the next person is a very, very dynamic person, Anna Molka. And we have somebody here, Rahat is here, who has worked with Anna Molka as well as her senior. And would you like to comment about
Anna
it?
Molka is a very interesting character, personally. She was of Polish-Russian heritage. She did her training in London at the St. Martin's School of Art. And then she came to Lahore in 1940 to teach at the art department at Punjab University in Lahore. After partition, she had the task of restructuring the art department at Punjab University. And as some of you are too young, but those of you who are not too young, at least have read history, will know how messed up Lahore was after partition. So many buildings were burned and there was complete confusion in the whole city. The destruction that took place. So she had to totally restructure the art department. In that process, she also introduced boys into the art program because before that, before partition, there had only been girls in the art department. And that was a big improvement, or let us say advance, for art as well. What we see here on the left, she loved to do portraits, and she did portraits of so many of the artists of Pakistan and of other...
On the left is Colin David.
Yes.
And she and Colin sort of never got along. And he ended up marrying his daughter, so that was another catastrophe. But anyhow, Khalid Saab also taught with. She was very dynamic and hence a very difficult person to work with. But
Dynamic and difficult.
Dynamic and difficult. But I think that is what really, that is why she managed to do what she managed to do, because she was like a roller coaster. She decided that this had to be done, and it got done. And we needed somebody like that at that time, and she held the department together and made sort of great strides in terms of teaching their programs, and it was really wonderful having her there. We needed somebody Russian and Hungarian.
Yeah.
A tough lady.
I think there's a question that needs to be addressed, which is, from Amrita Sher-Gil bringing these European influences, and then Anna Molka as well. So did she also bring some European sensibilities and fuse them into...
You can see from her work, too. She made the palette knife popular of time in Pakistan. I don't think people were really interested in using the palette knife. So this kind of thick, kind of strong European kind of approach to art, much influenced by German abstraction, Impressionism. And, lost my train of thought, but I wanted to say one other thing. Yes, her depiction of Punjab University was one of her favorite themes too. And she painted it over and over and again because, of course, it was her beloved home, her college.
Yeah.
Salima Hashmi.
Yes.
Next one. Is certainly needs no introduction in Lahore. If you are young or older, makes no difference. She is well known as an artist, as an educator, as curator, as a gallery founder. She founded early on founded a gallery in Islamabad and in Lahore, the Rotas Gallery, which was one of the only ones at that period of time, because Zubayda's had actually gone out of commission. And she's also known as well for her work in theater and TV, and she wrote books, and she wrote articles and promoted artists. She was principal, as you know, at the National College of Arts for a number of years. She founded the Beacon National University of Arts in Lahore.
No. She was heading the fine arts department.
Oh, I thought she was one of the founders.
No,
Okay, sorry
not
about
that far.
Occasionally I make mistakes.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
fine.
Lovely people like Saba correct me.
Yeah.
Not very often, though, I want you to know. Okay. And her political painting seen here is part of a movement that was going on at a certain period of time that we all know about, that Saba is going to talk about in more detail shortly. And our next one?
The next one
Yeah,
is,
we
yeah.
can say something about.
No, I think you've mentioned, that's
Okay.
Lubna Baba.
Lubna was a Karachi, our first real Karachi-based artist, whose abstract paintings, such as the one that you see on the right, were extremely popular all over Pakistan in the 60s and 70s. And her themes changed dramatically in the early 80s when she moved to California with her husband, who was posted there. Next slide. Oops. So I guess I have to, okay. So particularly this painting on behind me is exemplary of paintings that she did in California to express her feelings of estrangement from her homeland and her feelings of alienation. And the painting on the right represents a time when her husband was posted to the Middle East, to the Arab countries. And she went with him. They were there for a couple of years. And they toured, well, she became fascinated with the designs on the mosques and the buildings in general. If you've been to Morocco and you know how much of the Islamic design, the abstraction and the detail. So she painted and she made sculptures that represented what she felt was in the Islamic tradition, and introduced the idea back, I think, into popularity, the idea of rahels, as you see here, and painted them meticulously in a tremendous amount of detail, which was something that when they went back to California, this was new to Californians, new to Americans, and they loved it. And I think even in Pakistan, it's something that was a little different, that became very popular in Pakistan as well. When she had shows here, she never really came back. Yes, she did. She came back for a few years and lived in Boston and painted there.
And I think I saw her work. I found her work really amazing. I saw her work in this exhibition that Nima Puvia Smith curated, An Intelligent Rebellion, for Bradford Museum and Art Galleries, and she was part of that. I think there were 25 women who were part of that exhibition, and I saw her work there. The next artist that we will talk about is. Do you have any comments, Raza?
No, later.
Okay.
I'm collecting my comments.
Don't collect too much. Okay, so the next artist is Lala. So Lala Lala taught me. She was also a colleague and a friend. And Lala was, it's very interesting that Lala's work was very, very serene, and there are many of Lala's students sitting here, and Mariam is here, and Shajia is here. So Lala's work is very serene, but she was really very dynamic, and was one of the founder members of Women's Action Forum with Khabar Mumtaz, Farida Shaheed, who's here, and Samina Rahman, Saltanat Bukhari, and a number of others. But I just wanted to name a few because often in many, many articles now, it's mentioned that she created, like she was the only founder member of Women's Action Forum, so I just thought I'd correct that. There were many people, and Lala would want that to be corrected, so I don't think there's any problem there. So Lala's own work was very like minimalist. Many students, I think Rahat was also one of them, many students from Punjab University and NCA went to her place to do, to work in her garden. We did model, drawings from the model. And her work was very kind of minimalist, and her paintings were very serene. She worked with the photography and painted on miniatures, very miniature-like kind of effect. But her posters were like completely different. So all the political aspect of her work was when she did these posters, Masawi Hakook, Khawateen Mahaze Amal, these were all part of Women's Action Forum. And so she is one of those artists whose work, in terms of her paintings and her own work, was very different from the work that she did on the political front. And I would like to mention that it was a very difficult time during the Zia years. And it's always, like the women's movement was very strong. They suffered a lot. But I think the political workers at that time of various parties were persecuted in a much, in an awful way, and they were imprisoned and tortured. So, everybody did their share in terms of how this, during this period. The other thing that I would like to mention is that Lala set up this incredible MA Honours program in the National College of Arts, which for the first time we all worked with her. We were her colleagues. There are a number of people sitting here, including Umar, who set up Grey Noise in Dubai later. And she, for the first time, focused on South Asian seminars. And also, Marcella was part of that program. Would you like to comment?
History part of the MA program.
Yeah. And then she also introduced you to classical music.
I have a personal note there.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so Lala's very special to me. Very, very, very special.
Mike?
Oh, Lola is a very, very special one. It's so sad when she passed. Because I stayed with her for a while in her little house in Lahore. And she introduced me to classical South Asian music, ragas, and that I really, some of my favorite music now. She took me to the All Pakistan Music Conference that in fact was a purview of her father. As you know, her father was the one that started that, and tried to explain to me about, it was the first time that I'd heard any classical music of Pakistan. And then those were the days of like 1979, 1980. I was here on a Fulbright to write that book on contemporary painting in Pakistan, which did get published a few years later. And I was like, I don't want to say in shock, but almost in shock, being from America, that there was no music on the radio. There was no dancing allowed.
This is during Zia's time. You're talking about those years.
Yeah, this was, late 70s and 1980, the period of Zia. So it was very different. It felt very strange and very tense during that period of time. I think it was a time of martial law, if I remember correctly. And I kept hearing this on the radio and people talking about it. I guess I never really completely understood, but I could feel it. And that's my experience. Yeah.
I'd just like to mention in the end that Documenta 14 commissioned her to do this work. Rupak, which is quite amazing. It's an animation, a 6-minute animation on the tabla beat. No, we don't have an image of that. We have these images, but we don't have an image of Rupak here, which is now in the collection of Tate Museum in UK.
Some of her work then was actual notes. It looks like art, but that she was repeating musical notes as art, or interpreting musical notes as art. And then she did this water series with the sun shining. You said
Moon.
the moon.
Yeah, it's very subtle.
Okay.
The next artist is Karachi based, sorry, and that's Nahid Raza.
Yeah. Nahid Raza also was a teacher as well as a well-known artist of Pakistan. She taught at the Karachi Arts Council for years. Her earliest work was featuring the Chukandi tombs. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that famous funerary complex in Sindh. In fact, I have one of her paintings, so similar to that. Which shows that the artists were trying very much to illustrate their culture, like Amrita Sher-Gil was doing the village people. So were the artists in Pakistan trying to capture what they were as Pakistanis, what was around them and their subject matter. She also drew inspiration from Egyptian art, and most of her art, she looked at it from a feminist perspective. Her most recent women's series, as you can see here on the right, is a little bit more directly feminist. And the nearly empty settings here, let's go to the next one too. Another one on the left, women, a whole series of women in different positions with a dove, is the kind of thing that if you read the brochures at the exhibitions, if you read the newspaper articles, you can understand what the artist is saying. So many times we don't know. I can look at a painting, I can know an artist really well. I don't always understand what they're trying to say. What is their message? But you know what? If you don't have time to read the article, if you don't go to the exhibition, but you see the paintings somehow, you can interpret it on your own. You can look at it and you can say, you know, this is what it's telling me, and that's fine. You don't have to always know exactly what it is, what the artist is trying to tell you, as long as it moves you in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. Meher.
Yeah. Nahid is still at work and still exhibiting. Going strong. Meher Afroz is our next artist, and I turn that over to Saba.
Meher is a very well-known printmaker and a painter. And she migrated from Lucknow. I think she studied at the Lucknow College and then moved to Karachi and initiated printmaking. We didn't have a printmaking tradition as strong at that time. And she had a very small press which she brought with her from India, and she did printmaking on that. And what is really interesting about Meher is that she started working with Urdu poetry and literature. And so you find in her work not only, calligraphy that she writes herself. She has various poems that couplets that she's worked with, images with couplets, and also the writing itself. And she uses it as texture on paper. But somebody who I must mention here, somebody who's really is quite remarkable in this genre in terms of using the language and the calligraphy is Salima Hashmi. Unfortunately, we don't have any of her images here. Zarina is primarily from India, but she was in Pakistan very many times because half her family was here after partition. So she has a lot of work. I think you probably met her in...
I met her. The work on partition and the borders is very instructive,
It's it's very powerful. But she really brought in Urdu language in a big way into the visual art history of the subcontinent. And although she also left India, her marriage fell apart and her husband was in foreign service, and she ultimately settled in New York. For many, many years she was in New York. But she kept on working with Urdu as a language, with Urdu as imagery in terms of the idioms of istara, tashbih, or uski, there's a beautiful work of hers, Angan, इस तरह की चीज़ें जो कि लफ्ज़ अब इस्तेमाल भी नहीं होते हैं, तो उनको लेके उनका जो एक इमेज है उसके साथ ज़रीना ने बहुत एक्सटेंसिवली काम किया और थ्रू आउट काम किया. And it was, I was really fortunate to have met her, क्योंकि ज़रीना लाहौर कराची आती थी because her family was there. तो Zora Hussain at Chokandi Gallery, who also has a lot of her work even now, वो उनका काम बहुत दिखाती थी और उसी ज़िम्न में मेरी भी उनसे बहुत दफ़ा मुलाकात हुई. So it was lovely meeting her. She was somebody else who was as mad as me, who went to Japan and did paper making and did woodcut there. So we kind of shared that. But I was just so amazed that, this is the hold that language and culture had on her, कि वो throughout New York कितने साल रही, लेकिन कभी भी उन्होंने उसको अपना घर की तरह नहीं समझा. I mean, she never kind of assimilated in that culture. और वो जो अपना उनका सिलसिला था, वो जारी रहा और उनका काम बहुत खूबसूरत है. I mean, if you people have time, please do go and Google her. हम लोगों ने इसलिए नहीं डाला कि फिर वो बहुत सारा काम हम दिखाना चाह रहे थे तो बहुत मुश्किल हो रही थी. तो would you like to say anything about Zarina?
No, it's fine. I wanted to finish the series and then we can have some time for the audience.
Right. नहीं आप comment कर सकते हैं.
No, I mean thus far I think what is really striking in the selection you've made is the whole concept of how the ideas are crossing borders, ideas, impressions, styles, even themes of, so if you start with Amrita Sher-Gil right up to the case of Salima Hashmi, a lot of this work is a challenge, there's also implicit challenge of the sort of imposed or given borders or the frontiers of a nation state, if I may add. A lot of these artists are...
वहाँ भी बोली जाती है, यहाँ भी बोली जाती है, और बाहर भी डायस्पोरा में भी बहुत बोली जाती है. So Silvat Aziz, who's based in Canada, she's also worked on a number of things related to the language and the imagery which comes out of literature and poetry. And this is not, peculiar to the subcontinent. I mean, you have these amazing women artists in Iran, Farrokhzadeh की बहुत powerful poetry है, और उसके ऊपर बहुत सारे artists ने और filmmakers ने काम किया. I'm sorry, Marcella, we'll off onto a tangent in Urdu.
The next artist is Duria Kazi from Karachi, who was probably one of the first artists in Pakistan to make a 3D immersive installation. Other artists were starting to do installations, but we have just a small image of her installation. It was a complete room of art that entertains and instructs. She worked with and promoted folk art, street art, truck art, and popular culture. She took it from the periphery into the public realm, and we remember her for that. The next artist
No,
is
I'd just like to comment on Durya that I think we showed together, Durya and David in London. I was showing and they were also showing there. And they actually got this truck over to London, to UK. There was a truck standing outside. And so, that was a time when the popular art was also brought into the mainstream. And Durya goes on using this. Truck art, and she is still working with that, which is quite wonderful. And the other thing is that Durya has contributed immensely at the Karachi school. She established the fine arts department there, and she's running it even now, and spent many years with these students. So Karachi school is a different class of students coming in as opposed to it's a university as opposed to Indus Valley, which is later. Yeah.
the next artist that I want to mention is, in fact, is sitting here. Rahat Naveed Masood is an artist, highly respected and very successful artist, also an educator, and for years was chair of the Punjab University Art Department. She's also a curator. And we have her self-portrait from an exhibition, a fairly recent exhibition that was extremely successful. She works with all media and is particularly adept, I think, at, oh boy, my mind's gone bright, at pastels. Which is something that not a lot of artists use in Pakistan. So you can see this landscape makes nice, beautiful use of pastels. Look at the next one.
Yeah.
And a lovely painting. I think this one was done in oil, a very large painting that attracted my attention because of the viewpoint. And also something that's just totally typical of Pakistan. Say, if you're walking in Sabzi Bazaar. She also, of course, works in oil of canvas and other drawing, printmaking. Yes.
And the next one.
And the next one is also here.
Sitting here.
Is also here with us. Sabah Hussain, teacher, curator, another successful artist who I think probably, I met Sabah many years ago at the NCA, and I was immediately drawn to her Japanese aesthetic in her work and to the handmade paper that she made. The textures and the colors that you just can't replicate in commercial paper. She works in watercolor, ink, prints, and I think maybe I just ought to let Sabah talk about her own work.
Well, I've just brought in this series, which is based on the poems of Noon Mim Rashid, Hassan Kuzagar. These works were done over a period of 4 years, and there is a different, there are series in inkjet prints, then there are in oils, and later on handmade paper. So this was called Journeys, and these are journeys in space and time. And this is Hassan the Porter that Rashid wrote 4 times in his life after a period of 10 years each. And Raza has written about the work because it was shown also in Washington in the States. It's been shown in Chowkandi and in Karachi at the Noor Jahan's Gallery, Koil. So these were installations painted first. These are prints that my printings, then I made boards out of it, made installation, did photography, worked on them. But the final print is an inkjet print. So I'm just kind of going a little bit into the process. This was one of the images, which is, there's a stanza there by Noon Mim Rashid. 9 साल का अरसा यूं मुझ पे गुजरा जैसे किसी शहर मदफून पर वक्त गुजरे. This is how I have interpreted poetry. It is very difficult to actually do visuals with poetry because a word and a stanza gives you 100 images, and the moment you make it visual, then that's the only image that you have. So it's limiting. And this work was also a part of the series because I had an iconography of the river, the boat, the Sadri, and these poems are about Hassan the potter, who's based on the banks of Dajla, and it's also about Rashid himself, about his own creative journeys, and it also became my journey because this is my Sadri, which I started using in the prints and in the paintings that I did. These were then works on it's not a very clear, on handmade paper, and I used writing, and I used stanzas, and I carved poetry in wood blocks and then printed these as well. I think this is the last one probably. Yeah. Naiza Khan?
Yeah. When I first interviewed Naiza Khan, she was doing sort of sculptures and drawing that were very obviously feminist. But not long after that, and flip on to the next one.
Yeah.
So you can see the kind of thing that she was doing early on, these kind of sculptures and drawings that sort of feminist armor, as you might say. Okay, then you can go back. And then more recently, of course, this is Naiza working on the left. On the right, she's moved into printmaking and much more complicated themes that some of them refer to climate change and more personal events in her life, and especially what's going on around Karachi. I think even a lot of water, ocean, probably having to do with the dismantling of ships.
That's Field Notes Menorah. I think that
Okay,
was a series
you're right.
that was shown.
Menorah Field
Field
Notes.
shown in the Venice Biennale. I think that was part of that.
So take the next, let's see, flip on to the next one. I think also, is this, well, things such as this that I think are much more detailed, much more complicated, and the direction that she's working in now.
Next artist is Ruby Chishti. Would you like to speak?
Time is short, so we're moving on here. Ruby Chishti, okay, on the right. And we can move on to the next one. Okay, here we go. So much of Ruby's work stems from her many years of taking care of her loving mother, her loving, ailing mother, who then, after she passed away, you can see that this mother and child is a reflection of, not the Christian ethic, but in how she felt about her family, her taking care of her mother.
But it could be inspired from the Christian ethic of, no?
I don't think so,
Okay.
not with Ruby. And I think also there's a message here. It's something about the ephemeral reality of life, because she lost her mother, and she was so close to her, having taken care of her for so many years, that when she was gone, she was, oh dear, we're gone. So therefore the use of straw, which is something that, is an ephemeral kind of a material. Although that's a famous piece of artwork by Ruby, she's even better known by this, the city. What does she call the city without, in a ruin without people. And she made that from abandoned textiles. And in fact, so Ruby became very much associated with working with found materials, with discarded textiles. How are we doing time-wise? We're getting down there. Okay, we're pretty close to the end. And so on the right-hand side, her small people, her stuffed doll series, so sweet, so loving, sitting around communing, very much feminine, but not necessarily feminist, just feminine. And the one I love, I didn't put in, is the one where she has the dolls hugging each other. I think maybe some of you have seen that.
She's done soft sculpture, so I think she's probably the only one who's producing soft sculptures, and it's really, really interesting work.
In a very personal but very sweet and wonderful way. Our next artist is Nusra.
So we start with the miniatures now, and this is the last bit, but
We have
there are
more.
a couple of people in miniatures.
And then we need to fast track this. Okay. Nusra Latif was one of the early graduates of the National College of Arts Miniature Painting Program. And
then she was a master's student with us. So Hamra Abad.
the art where the East India Company was making a record of all flora and fauna of the country. And so they had Indian artists making drawings, paintings such as this. So that's kind of her interpretation. Then below, we see this kind of images of herself in different guises, fills an entire room. It's like about, 200 yards long, and it fills on film paper. And I think my interpretation of that, again, as I said, I didn't actually read up what she was trying to say. But to me, it means, it asks, the question is how we see ourselves and who we are and who we can be. Because as you can see, she even shows herself as Shah Jahan. Okay, next one.
I think she was in Lahore. She was based in Lahore for many years, and then she moved to Australia. And I think so that dichotomy kind of also is reflected in the work. And that's Saira Wasim now.
Saira
she's
Wasim.
Based in the States.
And Saira is in the States now. One of the things that I love about Saira's work, actually there are two things. One of the things is that most of the miniature painters like Nusra that we've just seen have moved, they perfected all the skills of miniature painting. Believe me, it took 4 years for them to learn how to be a miniature painter. And those that graduated from that program of Bashir Ahmed could probably make a Mughal painting that you couldn't tell wasn't made in 1650 or 1700. They're as good as any of the Mughal miniature or Persian miniatures or Bahari miniature painters. But they all moved on. They're doing videos, they're doing installations, they're doing wall painting. But still, you can tell that there's the miniature training there underneath it all. But Saira still sticks with go back just a second. Okay. Because there's something I want to say about this. She sticks with the tradition. She makes the paper, she sits on the floor, she goes through the long process of painting as if she were a Mughal miniature painter. But contemporary themes. And what I really love about her work is that there's always a sense of humor. So if you look at this, the Indians versus the Pakistanis, the cricket match, just take a second. It's hilarious. It's really amusing how they come together. And then, of course, Shah Jahan again hugging Shah Abbas up in the. So there's that little bit of a reference of the competition between, Shah Abbas is Persian, the Persian emperor, Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor, but that idea of competition between the countries. Okay. The next two of hers, again, smaller paintings like Mughal miniatures, like Persian or Bahari, and her themes. She makes fun again of. We have one more time. Okay, of Musharraf. And if you look at George Bush, he's looking through the, she said 5 minutes, through the wrong end of the microscope. So making fun of her own country as well as her new country, USA.
As well as your country.
As well as my country. Okay, move on. Yes.
Okay, Shazia Sikandar.
Shazia Sikandar, we end with Shazia because probably she's one of the best known artists, Pakistani artists in the world
The best
right
known
now.
artist from the subcontinent.
From the subcontinent.
Subcontinent.
Yes, that's true, right now. And
In the States. In the States, yeah.
but I would say internationally. I mean, let's face it, Shazia, everybody knows. When I'm at home and I say, well, that's USA, and say Shazia, oh yeah, we know Shazia. So her work is incredible. And she paints from Mughal and miniature and Bahari and Persian themes and imagery.
And then
but
she does
also-
films and animation,
Oh, yes.
video.
And in fact, even sculpture.
And the sculpture is amazing.
Yes, it's
And the sculpture is quite interesting
newest work,
because
yeah.
it's an homage to Ruth Bader Ginsburg in front of the museum that is dedicated to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yeah.
that's great.
Brings
Thank
us
you.
to the end of the talk.
So, I mean, we are really short of time. We can have
you
maybe a
for
question or
bearing with us.
two. But I do want to say, Sabah and Marcella, that, among the range that you selected, other than the borders idea, is also this international theme. Sometimes belonging and nationalities are inverted, upside down. So Shazia lives in America, practices there. Saira lives in California. Nasra lives Australia. Naiza is all over the world. You never know where she's located. She's in Abu Dhabi now. Earlier I met her at Harvard last year. So the question here is that, what is what does it reflect? It reflects the Pakistani modernity being sort of fused with the international trends, or does it indicate that Pakistani artists have more freedom when they're abroad? Because you have Hazara artists in Australia as well. I've forgotten his name, Khadim, I think. See, so a lot of this cross-border movement. So, Khadim Hussain, sorry, yeah. So I think that's a theme. I don't have any answer to that. I'm just pointing out what I am picking from your presentation. And secondly, I think the most important part here happens to be how the leading examples that you selected have picked on so many global themes, right from early 20th century, and brought them here or taken them elsewhere. So there's this constant movement going on of styles and practices. Anyway, yeah.
Hi, ma'am. Ma'am, thank you so much for your opinions and the one you did share the story of Ma'am Lala Ruth and her women action force during the Zia time.
Forum.
It's forum.
It's forum, right? And then you mentioned about Salima Hashmi, and then you mentioned about the Ana Murka Ahmed, who also introduced boys in art, right? Like introducing the boys in art. Yeah. So, ma'am, I have a question over here. Like, you have been working with NCA from last almost like a decade now, probably. Yeah, more than a decade. So, ma'am, with due respect, I have a question. Like, what do you think, when it was 2010, right? What kind of change you feel that there's a change between today's women when it comes to art and the women in 2010 and women in 2010, right? So what is the difference that you have experienced so far in the current generation when it comes to art, when it comes to, making new things? And should I rephrase my question again?
I guess, so they're saying what's the difference then and now if you have a measure of progress or evolution of art being produced. Mic, sub mic.
के लिहाज से हर चीज़
आगे बढ़ी है,
जाती है
okay.
और and you bring in influences and you take influences indigenously and you work with synthesis and वह बेहतर क्या था पहले और अब क्या बेहतर नहीं है ऐसी तो
So we have time for one more question, if anyone has one. For Marcella or Sabah, any question or comment?
मैं ख्याल में
Well, not really. So you've been really persuasive and
Thank you.
you've left people speechless.
Thank you so much for coming. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Raza. Thank you, Marcella. And thank you to the Think Fest for inviting us.